Right, so I'm not entirely certain what I'm gonna do here. I'm still thinking. Um, but basically, on the left, I've categorized the supports, and on the right, the carry role, I guess you can say. Um, so I outlined three main types. I mean, you can deep dive into all the small intricacies and details, uh, but then you'd have like 100 different categories, you know? So some do overlap, but for the most part, I tried to keep the categories fairly broad so that you could understand them and like just kind of like it's easy to kind of remember it. So basically, if you want, I can send you this, but effectively, obviously, you're not gonna always match up. Like, for example, if you get an Ezreal Lux lane or something, you know 100% it's a poke lane, right? Because you know poke and poke, right? You know you got one in poke here, one in poke there, or like say I don't know, say you have I don't know, a misfortune brand. Fairly easy. Poke lane, they're going to be pressuring you under the tower, whatever. Okay, but so what? Okay, you know what? I know what I'm going to do. I know what I'll do. Okay, right. What I'll do is I will outline the roles. Okay, then I'll try and explain how they work together. Okay, so poke characters, right? Typically speaking, um, they have escape tools, slash shields, right? Because the idea of their character is they kind of just what makes them poke champions as opposed to constant heavy trading, you know, like skirmish champions, is that they don't actually deal that much damage in one go, but they can all that small amount of damage can add up over time, right? So in order to compensate for that, they normally have some form of, you know, way of getting out. Now that's not the case with all poke champions. It's just a characteristic that a lot of them have. Have? I ain't got a fucking lisp. Have. So anyway, escape tools slash shields is something they normally have. Um, Spammable spells, definitely. I mean, it is a trademark of poke champions that they have spammable spells, or in the case of Caitlyn, auto attacks, because Caitlyn is a poke champion by definition because of the way that she pokes you down in the lane using her long range. Like, yeah, she doesn't fit the general mold of a poke champion, but that's what she is. She pokes you down, she pressures you in the lane. Okay, um, blah de blah de blah. So, okay, so the way to play a poke champion, typically, right? So, you know, uh, this, this. Okay, right. I know how I'm going to do this. Okay, how to play poke. Right. So, what the fuck was that? Oh, that was my passport. I should probably get that. Ow. Ow. Ugh. Okay, right. Okay, so how to play poke. So, first of all, the number one rule is uh, do not go in for extended trades. So this is a general rule for poke champions, is that you don't go in for extended trades. For example, if you're playing Ezreal versus a Draven, you want to hit him with one or two Qs, dance around the attack ranges of Draven, what have you. You don't want to fight him in a straight up fight, because you will lose 100% of the time. He's just gonna bop you with two axes and you're gonna die. That's basically, you know, that's how it works. You know, you don't go in for extended trades. Okay. Um, so the idea is you don't go in for extended trades. Generally speaking, you want to push into the tower, because when the enemy is under the tower, it's more difficult for them to get an all in, right? And also because you know they're going to be trying to go for the CS, it makes them an easy target to poke them down, maybe get chip damage on the tower. Like, you want to be pressuring the lane, you know? You want to make the enemy feel like they're under pressure, having to fight for every CS, having to do this, having to do that. That is what poke champions normally do. Like, you know, they want to just get you under that tower, and once you're under there, they want to keep you there until you're forced to recall and take a bad recall timing. They are generally pretty good in lane, poke champions, because, like I said, they have very spammable spells and they're able to get you quite easily. So that's her. That's her. That's that role. So generally, you don't want to go in for extended trades and push into the tower. I think that's it. Yeah, I think that's it. Okay. So that's poke. So what you do now is we do this. Okay. Pulls up on my other screen over here. Bring this over. Okay, right. So the next one, scaling. Okay, so scaling is the next one. So scaling champions usually lack damage early, or like they have a kind of a wait. Where have I haven't put Trist anywhere. I would put Trist as scaling. Trist can kind of be both, actually. Okay. They generally lack damage early, but they do sometimes have surprising amounts of burst in like level 1 or level 2. The two notable ones I'm thinking of are Twitch and Tristana. Both of them at level 2 can actually do some serious damage. But then after level 2, they start kind of, you know, their power kind of goes down until they get their items. So they lack damage early, and they usually lack escapes. Usually. Ezreal is an exception to the rule because due to item builds nowadays, he actually becomes a monster in the late game, getting the double tier build. Like his Q goes on to like a 0.5 second cooldown and it deals a fuck ton of damage, especially with his W. So he does have an escape, and Tristana does as well. But generally speaking, this sort of AD carry does not have an escape, or this sort of champion doesn't have an escape. So the way that you play these guys in lane. So this is your typical freeze in front of tower. So generally speaking, you freeze in front of your tower and then you win by going even in the lane. Now that's not the case for every matchup because I mean I'll get onto it. But you generally win by going even. Like if you go even versus poke and skirmish lanes, and like you come out of the lane having not died or even in CS, from a scaling perspective, that is a 1 lane. Like if you get Kai'Sa out of lane versus fucking like Draven or Cassiopeia or something, you're pretty happy. Honestly, you're pretty happy. It's pretty happy days. So that is more or less that one. And then we don't want to do that. We want to do this here. Where is my mouse? I've lost my mouse. There it is. Okay. Last one, skirmish. So I mean, skirmish is pretty standard. I mean, it's not something that you really play, and this is one of the reasons why I tell you not to play Draven, because Draven is like the hardest skirmish champion to play. Anyway, so skirmish champions have, they have a lot of early damage. They have a lot of early damage, like a lot of early damage, and what else? Generally speaking, they fall off late game. Zyra Khan is an exception, but that's because it's Zyra Khan. Like, Rakan makes Zyra aggressive. Without Rakan, Zyra just goes into the scaling mode. She's not so great in terms of skirmishing. Um, and then how to play skirmish. So how to play skirmishing? You just want to look for constant fights, freeze enemies out. So generally speaking, you can kind of do everything with freeze enemies out until there. I should probably say that. So skirmishing champions, like, wait, did I not put Thresh in? Oh my god, boosted. Okay. Generally speaking, skirmish champions in general want to get an advantage early because they suck ass if they're even in mid-late game. So what you want to do is you want to freeze out your opponent so they have to walk up to CS, and then you use your like heavy CC abilities or lockdown from the support to force openings so that your lane gets ahead automatically. Like it's kind of like the opposite of poke in the sense that, instead of trying to whittle someone down, you just have one massive whack at them which forces them to go back. And it obviously is more likely to net you a kill than poking is. But it's a lot more, it's a lot riskier. Like, yeah, it's a lot riskier. I think poking is the safer way of coming out of lane ahead. Anyway, so that I would say is generally the three kind of classes of character you have in the bottom lane. Like, you can get into niches like shield supports or whatever, but more or less this is what you're working with. So now the question is how to play against them. So how am I going to do this? I can just talk about it and maybe I'll summarize it. Yeah, let's do that. Okay, so playing against poke, I mean, it's kind of like a triangle, right? So scaling beats poke, poke beats all in, and all in beats scaling. Yeah, that works. Let's see if I can reignite my amazing paint skills. Oh boy, this is not going to go well. Don't even use this fucking thing. Oh, okay, no, not doing that. How do I do this? Oh my god. Solid colour. Oh. Oh, here we go. Oh, it's colouring the line, I think. Okay, no, allow that. Right, let's not get fancy. Right, so okay. Ooh, I see it.
Joe, have you had dinner yet?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Well, there's some of that. You can have some of this pizza in here if you want it. I'm just letting it cool down.
Okay.
Then I'm
Alright.
gonna put it in the fridge later.
Oh no, I got rid of my box. Oh shit. Okay, let's just do this first. One thing at a time. One thing at a time. Right. So let's have poke up the top here. That is not the colour I want. Oh my god, I fucked this up so bad. I fucked this up so bad. Oh well. No, go away. I don't want you. Fuck off. Okay, fine. What have I done? Wait, I think I'm just being really clapped. Oh, who cares? Right. Yeah, I am. I'm creating by clicking. Okay, I see. I see. So, poke beats all in. Oh, I don't have my fucking box. Unlucky, I guess. And then no, all in is there. Poke, all in, scaling. Yeah. Right, select. I think this is gonna do what I think it's gonna do. No, thank you. You can have your own. Oh no, you can't. Yes, I can. I can do this. I believe in me. Make it blue. Haha. Okay. I botched that, but you get the point, and hopefully me making a complete ass of myself helps you remember it. So this is basically my amazing diagram that you've just seen me make. So poke beats all in. The reason why is for the reasons that we have already described. So let's just move my wonderful drawing. Oh no. Wait. Ah, I see. I see. Okay. Wonderful drawing. You can probably go over here. There we go. Okay, after my amazing paint skills. Who's that? Ah. Right, so the reason why poke beats all in is because poke have the escape tools, shields, and spammable spells basically to keep the all in champions at range, and they can basically stop you from ever getting that advantage that you want, to use to get out of lane. Scaling champions have no fucking damage, and they also do not have the escape tools usually to stop the all-in attempts. Hence why, things like Draven, Leona into Kai'Sa is a really rough lane for Kai'Sa, because she hasn't got the escape tools to get out, and on top of that, she doesn't have the damage to fight back. But then scaling beats poke because unlike all-in or skirmish, poke champions don't have the damage to really force poke champions out of lane, providing that the people who are playing the scaling side, dodge correctly and whatever. So anyway, so that is more or less the triangle. Now, when you have like skirmish v skirmish and scaling v scaling, poke v poke, it really depends. Like, for example, when you have Vayne versus Kai'Sa, I went over already in the video, the replay of your game, about how there are certain details in the lane where one is stronger than the other. So that comes down to champion knowledge and playing the matchups yourself to really understand them. Like, for example, let's use an example. So Twitch, because I can play Twitch. Oh no, I'll use Jin because I play Jin more. So Jin versus I know Jin versus Caitlyn. Okay, so Caitlyn has a small range advantage on Jin, but uh, Jin can start boots for pots. To basically every time Caitlyn gets the auto trade on him, he can reply with auto Q, and because he'll start with 4 potions, he'll be able to poke down the Caitlyn more to kind of sustain through the lane. Then it's very dependent on what the supports are, depend on how the rest of the lane goes. But versus champion, that's what happens. Right, so it's like it really depends. Like that's where your knowledge of champions comes in. That's why you play a lot of games on the champion. Now, uh, when you mix them, this is where it gets confusing a bit. So, how long have I been recording? 20 minutes. Okay. Um, so when you start mixing them, this is where it gets a bit confusing. So you have to identify what every champion wants, right? And how the champions synergize together to achieve their goals, okay? So, for example, let me pull my league client up, which is currently here. And let's go, are you on here? There you are. Let's take that game that I did the replay on. Okay? So, you were playing Kai'Sa Pyke versus Vayne Karma. Okay, so using using what we know, let's break this down. Okay, so Kai'Sa is a scaling champion, Pyke is a skirmish champion. Okay, Vayne is a scaling champion, Karma is a poke champion. Right. So what you need to do, so let's take it. Let's remove the champions, right? So you've got scaling and all-in versus scaling and poke. Okay. So how does each side win the lane? So scaling and poke will want to basically push the enemy into the tower so that they cannot harass the scaling champion while she farms, and then at the same time the poke champion is able to utilize her strong ability or their strong abilities to keep the scaling champion and the all-in champion down. And then whenever there's an all-in, the poke champion wants to correctly utilize their shields and their movement speed or whatever they have to negate the all-in attempt and continue the poke. Okay? Now on the flip side, you have scaling and all-in. What they want to do is they want to freeze the wave just in front of the tower, because that's what scaling champions like to do, right? So they want to keep it in front of the tower, but skirmish champions also like to do that. They like to freeze enemies out. So you freeze the wave in front of your tower, and what that does is it allows the all-in champion to look for those all-ins. Then the scaling champion can utilize what little damage they do have to contribute to the fight, so that and the all-in champion will do the legwork. So, in the state of your game, okay, Pyke would do the majority of the damage in the lane, right? Whoever he hits the Q on, you can, and like whoever he all-ins, you just go for the squishiest target, right? Basically, what you're doing is you're not trying to kill them, you're just trying to soften them up so Pyke can do the damage, because Pyke is the all-in champion, right? And that's the idea of it. You want to just do as much damage as you can, but Pyke is the all-in champion. He's doing the legwork. You're scaling. You're playing a scaling champion. On the flip side, Vayne and Karma, they don't want to get all-in on because they're scaling and poke. They really don't like all-in. So, they want to keep that Pyke at arm's length. So, you need to basically play to the strengths of the lane. Now, hopefully, if you actually use this will help you to establish what you want in the lane. But that is one of the things that you need to do with regards to laning phase. You need to just look at the champions that are in the game in terms of the bot lane matchup, and then see kind of what you're doing with it. Then, like, I'm not saying you should do this because it's like honestly. So yeah, you have to use your knowledge of the champion types to establish winning conditions. But then once you get experienced enough, you have to start bringing in junglers into the equation and mid laners and what have you. Like that's why I said, for example, the Sejuani Camille, you knew Camille started on the bot side because the enemy bot lane leased. Um, you then saw Sejuani do the invade into the red side jungle of Camille, so you knew that Camille wasn't around yet. And then she, instead of basing, she went for a gank top lane, which meant that she was probably going to be back around bot lane around 5 minutes. So you know, around 5 minutes, oh, I'm gonna have to play a bit safer. Because the Camille's probably around, and she did come around, and she actually they nearly got you. I mean, that was just you mispositioning in the lane, but the point stands. Like, so you have to then start like that's what the highest level players do is they bring in all the information of the champions in the game and they use it to make decisions about how they're gonna play. Right? Like, that's the end game. But for now, just focus on your lane. Like, don't bring in the junglers into it. You don't know enough about jungle matchups to make a good assessment. But stick to the bot lane ones for now. But yeah, that's more or less it really. I mean, what I'll do is I'll Gyarzo I'll screenshot the actual writing. If you want, I can screenshot the image, but but I think it's kind of mean. Um, but yeah, that's it really. That is about it.